You're listening to the Two in the Mud podcast with Tony Rico and Scott Smith. Okay, it's episode 4 of the Two in the Mud podcast, and we got a special. I don't even know how special this some bitch is. We got a guest. All right, we got a guest. I'd like to say we got a special guest, but we got a guest. All right, but we got a guest with us today. We're going to talk some hitting, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Probably tell a few stories, but I want to welcome you guys to the Two in the Mud podcast, episode 4. Got Tony Rico and one of the hitting coaches, assistant coach from Ole Miss University. Is it the University of Ole Miss or is it Ole Miss University? What is it?
It's the University of Mississippi, but everyone calls
the University of Mississippi, Bobby Buchanan. So, Bobby, welcome to the show today, man.
Standing O, bringing the applause.
Get the crowd noise.
There you go.
Put some crowd noise in there.
Glad to be here, guys.
Shift to the left. Only half your face is showing on the damn camera. There you go. See, I'm already just like when he worked for me, I had to straighten him up.
Well, you might want to explain that, because I think there's two things already. If anyone's wondering why Scott's a little flustered or just not quite in the pocket yet, is because he just barely landed a small private plane, it seemed like, and we didn't know if he was going to land. So we're here safely.
I got it.
Woo! What it took. We definitely went through the mud again to get here.
Hey, remember the name of the name of the show is Two. So if I was in the mud, you were in the mud.
Well, I didn't get it at first,
but
now
Two
I
in the mud,
totally
dude. Yeah. Bobby.
And then obviously there's some kind of pre-existing relationship. You guys go back a little bit.
We do. Yeah,
Sure do.
He's good people. He's from South Texas. He got good parents. I don't know how his parents, as good as they were, produced him. I mean, I just don't get it. Like, I just don't figure it out. But he got some good family down in Lytle, Texas. Dude, people, if we say Lytle, Texas on here, nobody's going to know where that is.
All right. So you lost me already. Give me an idea. Is that near
Honestly,
Dallas?
though, once I post this, everyone from Lytle, Texas start tuning into
Let's go.
We
need some more people to subscribe on YouTube and follow us. We need more people to hear Tony and I talk a bunch of dumb shit once every 2 weeks. You know, when we were talking about getting a guest, like when we were starting that conversation, I said, look, the guest has to be about as silly as you and I. So let's make sure we get this right. Like, we can't bring someone in here more intellectually talented than us. That's going to say a bunch of big words. This dude's for sure not going to do that. I ain't promise you that. Right? Yeah, he's from Lytle. Yeah. But
I graduated from Texas State University. That we don't know too many words there either.
The cool thing but we were going to talk about hitting, and this dude knows a lot about that. So we checked the block.
Well, let's can we talk just real quick on just overall coaching in fast pitch, Bob? Like how many years in fast pitch itself?
I started helping out at Texas State University. I was a volunteer coach in 2012. So since then,
so what were you, about like 14 at that time, or what? How'd that happen?
Early 20s, man. I was young. I was a young pup, and very blessed.
Stumble into it?
Yeah, I honestly, I was a baseball guy, and one of my mentors in baseball were like, "Hey, you might actually like that softball thing, you know?" Because what I wanted to be was a pro scout, and they were saying that I needed on-field experience, and at least at the college level or at the pro level, and so it's hard to come by, especially paid. And so he goes, "Well, why don't you try getting out there at softball, at least get your foot in the door with college athletics, and then break into baseball." And I was like, girls, the diamond's small, the ball's big. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. And he goes, "Try it out," And so I talked to Ricky Woodard and PJ Brune at Texas State, and they allowed me to come out and help out. And very fortunate because honestly, a lot of the things I do today stem from them, from how I coach the players, um, to how I build trust with the players. All those things come from those people. And like I said, if I wouldn't have gone into softball and gone into that office to talk about trying to help out with the team, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so
Wow.
I'm very, very grateful for them.
Think of stuff like that, right? And if one left turn instead of a right, right?
100%.
And so then, like a lot of us, didn't realize how much you were going to fall in love with it.
Dude, once I figured out that it was close enough to the game that I loved, but it was still new and fresh, and I was learning, and it was fast, and female athletes are built different. Like I was just like, man, this is what I want to do, and I kind of never really looked back, to be honest. So,
Well, you're infected, addicted in all the right ways now, right? So
that's right, man. That's right.
welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're lucky to put in 60 years like Scott,
Shit.
Hoping to be walking around with gray hair like Scott.
My knees feel like they're 60 years on them. I can tell you that. Bobby, you mentioned Coach Woodard. She's about as good as it is, for people that don't know Ricky and all that she's accomplished and all that's taken place there. How much do you think she shaped your career?
Man, I mean, still to this day, when I need advice, that's the first phone call I make is Ricky Woodard, man. She helped me, not just on the coaching side, but in the career space too, right? Like, what's the next move? How's that gonna, affect your career down the road if you do this and do that? And yeah, I mean, like I said, man, I'm so grateful that she's my mentor. For one, she wins.
She wins
That's
a bunch.
the biggest thing that she imprinted on me. Is,
Yeah.
hey, this is how you win. And so one thing that she left on me is the ability to win, how to do it, and how to get your players to buy into it.
Man, she's so good, man. She's the same way. I pick up the phone, call her, ask her about different stuff. If I ever need to do anything at that field, she's the first to say, "Let's go." She's just good people. Besides Ricky, besides her, what do you think? Is there anything you feel along the way that, especially like on the hitting side, we're here to talk a lot of hitting. Who do you think shaped that side of you? Like where do you get what you teach? Where's your brain? Was there anything or any person that helped shape what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, there's been honestly a ton of coaches, from my dad when I was young, to Ricky, to Jeff Harger at Texas A&M, to people like Bobby Tewksbury, even people at the Bombers and Tony. Like me and Tony have had a ton of conversations about hitting and fielding and pitching and everything. But honestly, more than anything, what really, really shapes, in my opinion, the hitting is the feedback from the players, because they're the ones that are in the box and they're the ones that are making the adjustments. And so for me, a lot of it comes from what has the players had that has been successful, and what did I say to them that helped them have success. And that's been kind of, in my opinion, the biggest area of knowledge that I've gained, is just understanding what the players like. I have a survey that I send out, and Aaron has one that he sends out as well, that it's just gathering information, right, about our players. It could be as simple as, hey, do you like to be in the front of the box or the back of the box? Right? Hey, what was your swing journey? Like what got you to this point? Because the worst thing is that college coach can do is, once they get here on campus, we go, all right, now we're changing this. Well, hey, they put their hands that high for a reason, or they have no stride for a reason. All right, let's try to understand them before we start actually just absolutely tearing apart their swing, And there's times that we do a whole revamp on a swing, but it's not after us not understanding where they're at and how they got there. And the other piece that has really changed the way I think of things is the data, from ball flight data, movement data, and even S2 cognition, man. Like, that stuff, it's opened my eyes to everything. What's reality versus feel. And yeah, I would say that those, in combination of those people and the experiences I've had, have kind of led me to where I'm at today. So
Well, I give you a lot of credit, Bob, for taking that approach and learning about the player that's been playing this game 10 plus years. Most of them are still a compilation of a lot of people's advice, but not a lot of ownership by the time they get to you, right? And understanding that especially hitting is glamorous, right? Hitting is something that we love to pop the hood on, learn, and there's so much availability of information nowadays. But then it's like all this onboarding to all these kids, right? And then so so in reality for us, we prepare our kids to change. Like, I've got them doing one-legged stuff, wide stance, closed stance, every little thing. I said, I want you to be able to adapt in case you get into an environment. Say, hey, this is the way we do it here, even if it's a physical type thing. So they're not just stuck in a hole. But I give you credit and would encourage any coaches to, because we get excited about teaching, right? But teaching is not just what you know, it's how you get it across to somebody. So I give you a lot of credit for that because I bet your players appreciate that.
yeah, I like to think they do, man, to be honest. And that's the other thing is that line of communication, being able to, like, once you start asking those questions and you start digging into and I can't tell you how many times a player's dad was the reason why and no one wants to go, well, hey, your dad's wrong, right? And so, like, let's try to figure out why they got to that point, and how do we work from within the parameters that have already been built into this athlete?
What's crazy,
So,
Bobby, is in I have a unique perspective because you coached down here for a couple of years, and you and I spent a lot of time together and working together on the hitting side and stuff. Is I like to think of, and I know you tend to, and you kind of alluded to it to a certain extent, but that hitting is more of a recipe, right? What comes out after it's cooked ain't always going to be the exact same, and a lot of people get real, ideologically based. This is how it has to be necessarily, and the ingredients may not match up to cook it that way. And
yep.
it's interesting, man, because what ingredients you might add to it to make it turn out where it really looks and tastes good may not be what's needed. Sometimes you have to back off that. Well, I thought adding a leg kick was really going to be the ticket, but that didn't do it. And I know, and you and I'll let you talk about it more, but the whole S2, you mentioned S2 cognition, about certain people that have rhythm, certain people that have timing issues, certain people that have all those different factors. Most people don't understand or even comprehend how big a role that plays in people. Talk about, if you would, how important the whole movement side of things is. I know you spend a lot of time and effort on the movement piece. Like, a lot of times we want to talk about the contact and ball flight and what that's doing. I totally get it, but we got to move away to get to that point. So tell me how big a role that has played for you. I know how much we integrated it at the Bombers, right? That piece when you were here. But how has that transitioned, like, with you to Ole Miss, and how you guys go about that part of it? Talk about maybe how you screen it, what y'all are doing to go down that path.
Yeah. So, I would say the biggest things when it comes to the movement side is understanding, one, not everyone moves the same, right? And there's styles that people have, but then there's absolutes. And so there's things that every great hitter, you look at every single great hitter, they're going to have some commonalities. And so one thing that we try to do is we try to show them those commonalities, but then let them have style. Um,
Physical commonalities,
what was
like
that?
the physical commonalities, the
The,
physical absolutes. Yeah.
yeah, like
Point
the
of contact or
physical.
something, or,
Yeah,
okay.
like, eye line stays, at a certain height,
Yeah.
doesn't drop or doesn't, come up. If you're coming up, then you're probably coming out of your legs or out of your hinge.
Right.
Like, there's certain things that every great hitter has, right? Their heads aren't tilted like this at
You made my
contact,
head
right?
want
They're
to tilt like that
straight.
when you did
Like,
that. I need to crack my neck real quick.
I instantly saw about 100 softball
Yeah.
players that go up there with their head
Yeah.
tilted,
I mean, if
and they're
God
no,
wanted you to
and
look
they're
like
still.
that, he'd put
like
your
a lot
eyes on one on top and one on bottom. Yeah.
exactly. So, like, there's little finite things like that we like to point out so that we can address those and get those over with. But then there's things like bracing and being able to accelerate at the right time and then stop at the right time, right? and how does that sequence your body, and how does that translate into bat speed and rotational acceleration and exit velocity, right? And so we do a lot of things that revolve around those things. And honestly, the players don't necessarily know it because I don't want to break down a whole entire science project for them, right? But what they need to know is, hey, I want you to turn hard and I want you to stop hard at the right time, right? And so I get them into these spots. And then we also look at, well, hey, maybe this person needs to be a little bit more closed off, or they need to be a little bit more open, right? Based off of how they move. Um, and so it's played a huge role. And honestly, a lot of our success when it comes to our power numbers and our slug, I don't try to get too wrapped up in the stats because honestly, more than anything, what I look at is hard hit ball percentage and on base percentage. Right, those are the two stats that I want our players caring about. I don't want them getting caught up in batting average and their slug and all those sorts of things. But for me and Aaron, we use them obviously as measuring tools for our own team's success. But it has led to higher power numbers than what we had last year, and some of the returners that we've had. Shoot, we've had returners that didn't even play last year that are in the starting lineup now because they've bought into certain things. And so, yeah, man,
probably given them a system, right?
Real.
You've given them training and a system to abide by, as opposed to the performance numbers that everyone, I call it the untrained, right? Or the unfortunate to not get that level of mentality, and they obsess on those other types of things. Your stats and everyone's stats are a result of how you hit. So if you're hitting in a stat mind, that's probably why your stats are down a little bit. So I would assume, I really like what you said about, you think about how to keep it simple and only say to the hitter what needs to be said, because I think that's another point, again, for I always say maybe our two listeners now, that to take away when they're working with kids, because I get the excitement of passing on what you know, right? It's a really easy place to get into. You're discovering what's actually happening, the biomechanics, the numbers, whatever it is, but now you're onboarding all this stuff to a 12, a 14, a 16-year-old. So when you can simplify that, I've always told our kids, it's like a neurologist doesn't let me know everything he or she might. I don't see a neurologist.
You need
by the
to
way.
see.
I'm just saying,
you probably need one though.
Whoa. I'd be like, bro, you don't need to tell me everything you know. Just tell me how I stay alive, or I can keep my focus a little bit. But I think that's an important thing too. And then the last point for me is, with all of these components that go into it, somewhere you have an end product of how it moves, which also what includes rhythm, right? Timing and the fluidity. Now I'm going to go like to a dancer, right? All the techniques of the dance, but in the end, when we're watching somebody, it's beautiful to watch, right?
That's right. That's right. So you're dissecting all these small areas, right, to create a whole picture or a puzzle or however you want to frame it. But what you said, Tony, was beautiful because the best coaches can take super complex ideas and make them super simple, and just because an idea is complex doesn't make it good. And just like an idea that's simple doesn't make it good, right? It's the knowledge and the experience combined that makes that impactful, and how you communicate it, right? All those things matter. And so it's, to me, if coaches are listening right now, I think the biggest thing is, like you said, don't take everything that you know and give it to them. Figure out how to simplify it, and then give that message in an easy, digestible way, so that your players can achieve what you want to go achieve.
Well, and the timing of delivering that information back to the player, like a lot of times it's they give that info. We as coaches don't give it at the right time. You see some of them stand over at third base and they're giving a hitting lesson during the at bat, versus when those opportunities should be talked about, or et cetera. But I still go back to, I still go back to the conversation JT Gasso and I had. He and I were talking about S2, and when Sidney Sanders was transferring over to OU, and he inquired, he was having a conversation with her. He was telling me a story. I was having a conversation with her about, what are some of your goals coming to OU here? And she said, yeah, man, I'd really like to add like a leg kick. I know like a lot of your players have leg kicks. And initially in his brain was, yeah, sure. I ain't gonna be hard to do. We can do that. once they tested her with S2 cognition and found she was poor in timing and poor in rhythm, that would have been super detrimental to her success. Like to add that in and not ever consider that move for her would have been a poor adjustment. And there's some people that just add it in because that's their philosophy. And that's the point we're going at, is that if you're a coach, it's so simple to go and, hey, this is what I believe. This is the way it's got to be. And this is the only way it's got to be if you're going to play here. And I would challenge coaches, man, get away from that mentality, because there's too much data. There's too much information out there that can help you make those decisions. So stuff, man.
Man, that, like, I mean, I just think about our own team, man. Like, how many players before we got tested, we were working on things, and I even told Aaron, I said, Aaron, we're going to change all this, right? Because, and it was like the first couple of weeks, it's like that test is going to come back, and we're going to go, man, that player doesn't have good rhythm, that player doesn't have good timing, that person has bad perception speed, blah, 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 all the way through our stuff. So we kind of actually put a hold on things because we knew we're going to have to make mechanical adjustments based off of their cognitive abilities, right, and their capacity. And so you're right. For one, I didn't even know this when I was first working with S2, when I owned my company. Like, there's a difference between rhythm and timing, and I used to combine things together, right? And the best analogy I can use for that is a gun, right? Rhythm is, when am I cocking that gun? And then timing is, when am I pulling that trigger, right? And so in regards to a swing, when am I getting loaded?
Hold on, bro. Turn sideways. Let me see the flow, the lettuce in the back. Okay, you did cut it. You cut it. Hey, hold on. I didn't mean to jump in there, bro. But, like, there's a term down here in Texas called tequache, all right? And his nick, tequache.
Wait, to what?
Tequache. Yeah.
Tequache?
All right. For those people in Texas that when they hear that tequache, they're going to know what I'm talking about. But Bobby's nickname still at the Bobbers is tequache. He's in group text still. Hey, tequache. But you cut it down. Like, you've taken it, you're maturing, or something's happening. Or the Mississippi people said, we're not having that in this state. We're not doing it. You're not walking into the library with that lettuce on the back of your head.
Hey, the library is now nationwide. They're going to be watching this going,
Tony, if there's a place that we want to get sponsored by, it's the library. If you've never been to the library in Oxford, Mississippi, you need to. I went on Jade's visit to Ole Miss. I made sure I checked out the library. It's a good place. There's a lot of good people there.
Hey, look, we'll get library cards and we'll do
an episode from the library.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Live.
So
that will not be a technical challenge at all.
Shit, no. It's a really cool place. And for those that are wondering, it ain't the library you're thinking of. All right.
You go in there to read a book.
They don't even read books in Mississippi. What are you talking? They don't have books in Mississippi. I'm playing. I'm joking. I'm joking. I didn't mean that. I was joking. Hey, I gotta ask this question. I gotta ask this question so I can make people in Mississippi not mad at me. How cool is it to get a chance to work with Aaron and kind of do that thing in a cohort environment? You do two together kind of. I know how cool that would be for me, right? Like, it's one thing, it's daunting to think about taking on the responsibility of being responsible for the offense per se, but having someone with his experience and as successful as he was, and how's that going? What's that look like?
Man, he has been one of the best coworkers, if not the best coworker I've ever had in my
Better than me.
life.
God damn it!
Everyone,
hey, cut this right.
Hey, let's cut this.
Cut his feed real quick. Yeah,
this part out.
Yeah, cut that sound gun.
Man, Aaron, along with his experience and all the wins, he is one of the smartest human beings, probably in the entire world. I mean, seriously, that guy knows softball like the back of his hand, and it's been great learning from him. And he would say the same thing about me, that it's been great learning from me and all the things. But one of the things about Aaron running the offense, from the offensive side, is when he's at third and running the offense, he is a mastermind. Like, he knows how to pick the game apart. He understands situations. He understands what to do in certain counts and certain outs. And so on the base path, he's just absolutely phenomenal. Great hitting coach. But no, I think us together, and I think it's shown, in the numbers and everything like that. I think we've put a pretty good product out, coming from last year where they were, to where we are now. I think both of us are low ego. We just want to win. Like, the two things that me and Aaron, or the one thing that me and Aaron have in common, is we want to win. And so when you have two people like that running the offense, things get done.
Well, that
So
allows that kind of some of that, as we mentioned earlier, the cross generation, right? So from the older school and kind of the newer school, and that's why I give Scott a lot of credit from transitioning kind of where we all came from, and then being really the leader in travel ball and getting into the amount of information, applying it, and then watching for me that dramatic change of becoming like the powerhouse offense of the country, right? So getting to work with Aaron. Man, that's pretty awesome, and it's showing in the numbers and the performance and everything else. What would you say is the biggest change from the player's standpoint? Is it that they now have something more systematic, something they can trust more than just their results? Like, what would you say?
um, man, I don't know. I'm gonna ask him that question. But if I had to guess, it was more um, the process and not being so caught up in what is our batting average and like them understanding. Hey, all we care about is if you hit the ball hard,
Yeah.
right? If you hit the ball hard, good things are going to happen, because after 68 miles an hour, this is what data shows. If you hit the ball 68 miles an hour, your batting average would equal about 558.
Well,
If
but
you hit
that's the beauty of it is if you think about where guys like Aaron came from without that data available, and and originally what the metrics and the data took notice of what the best were doing, right? But
up,
those best players weren't thinking data because they didn't have any back then. So what went through that mind? And I would imagine again that there's times when players are just saying, I just never looked at it that way. It's not that
mhm.
he's saying anything that you haven't heard before. Just I never really looked at it that way, and it just makes hit the ball hard because if you're not even thinking that, right, or the a power in thinking to hit the ball hard, to Scott's point, as opposed to being in the box and trying to work out your body parts, right? So and obviously it's showing. So what are some of the areas that you're most happy with so far to this point, knowing that you're in a bloodbath every week, man? Every week now, it's like woo,
Man, it feels like it's a super regional every weekend. But
yeah,
I would say, you know, the areas that I'm happy with most, one are our team's morale. Like, when you have a team that, no matter if you're starting, not starting, they're willing to play for each other. It's very noticeable. There's some teams that isn't the case. From the offensive side, man, um, I'm just super proud of a team last year that just didn't have a lot of offensive success being able to do what they do this year, right? And the two benchmarks that we look at, hard hit percentage and on base percentage, have skyrocketed from last year. I mean, it's absolutely revitalized. And
do you
so
talk about chart, video, capture, just their pitch selection, over a certain amount of bats, like what they're actually, because that's, pretty strongly correlated to hard hit percentage, right?
100%, and that's what I was going to say. We've totally flipped um, what they've done in certain counts. So, their take percentages in certain counts are totally flipped. They were taking in 2-0 counts when you're going like, what should be taken in 2-0? Like, you should have a high take rate in 2-0. You should be swinging in 2-0, and so what I kind of did was I took MLB standards, and so I compared them to our team from last year,
Right.
and then I had a one-on-one with every single player. And so within that one-on-one, we kind of broke down, hey, here's your take percentage, here's your swing percentage, here's your chase percentage for every count, right? I did this in the fall. So I took all MLB stats, what the average MLB player does in each count, right? Those three things. How often do they take? How often do they swing? How often do they chase? Um, and we did a full debrief. And honestly, we're on par with some of the best right now when it comes to our takes and chase and those sorts of things.
And you
Last
have
weekend kind of set us back a little bit, but I think everyone's due to have a not great weekend. So,
Sure. Well, listen. You're in a conference. That's just the way it is, right? You want to end up way more on the plus side than the negative side. But you look at those coaches that are used to competing in those conferences, and they understand the give and take of it as well too. You don't see them out to, really like every game is this. They understand there's a certain percentage. You got to get certain because you've got to extend it into the real super regionals and college World
right.
Series
Bobby,
and
what's
everything else.
do you know what the average chase rate in the SEC is? And where
Not off the
you,
top of my
because
head.
that would be a thing I'd be real curious at, right? See, because if I could go below the average and we can be better at chasing than our competition in that league, because you're going to be better than most teams
Well,
you play just because of talent players you got. But
that
yeah,
I do know. We are
yeah,
below the average SEC team. So we do not chase as much
the
as
traditional SEC team.
the
Yeah,
average.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
So
to me, that's the whole, and this, we did this with the Bombers big time, was trying to count total bases against our opponents, trying to, our chase rate versus their, we don't get that luxury that you're going to get in collegiate softball versus what we get in the travel space. But yeah, that chase rate, man, that's a real number, man.
that's a real thing. And the other thing too is like, as much as I understand that power hitters are going to strike out more, um, at the same time, there's still a threshold of you can't strike out too
Mm-hmm.
much, right? So when you have a bat speed of 75 plus, you need to touch the ball more,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like because if you touch the ball at 75 plus, it's coming off at 72
yeah.
plus at least, if you hit it, on the screw. And so, um, we had some conversations with some of those players as well on our team that maybe had super high whiff rate, but had really high exit speed. Like, hey, we've got to get you making
Well,
contact more. So
bro,
how do we do that?
Aaron Judge, right? His exit velo and stuff is incredible. He gets in the postseason and
100
his
plus.
chase rate explodes, right? And they struggle to win. Like that's the difference,
Scott, it makes sense to your point last week when we were talking about the thing you would change, right? And you talked
Yep.
about the river. Well, when I go back and I watch our episode, a lot of times I soak things in different than when we're in that conversation. And it does make sense for the players that you're preparing, where they're going at this
Mm-hmm.
level now that Bobby's now coaching out, that it's important to know because the more you expand, you're giving yourself away, right? And I would imagine the key to making $20 million as a major league player is to expand less, put the barrel on more mistakes and things. So that makes a lot of sense. Here's a question for both of you guys. So when a kid is hitting off a tee, generating exit velo, right? And now you put her in to face pitching or a machine where it's coming in at 68. Does the effort of her swing change? Meaning, does she swing as hard off 68 as she did off that tee? Or does somehow that 75 exit velo integrate it between the speed of the pitch and now the timing and maybe not as hard of a swing? Or do you see a difference or not really?
I'll let you take it, Scott, and then I'll
I
answer
think
after.
I think inevitably, and I have an opinion about it. I think it comes down to intent, right? Their intent off the tee is real intentional because it's not moving, and so you're usually seeing a really maxed out effort. So in fact, sometimes you have to try to. Hey, you're not stopping. You're spinning out on a ball that's not moving. Like when that starts moving, that's going to be problematic, kind of thing. So how intentional you are on the tee. So then when the ball gets in flight, and Bobby knows this, I'm not a big front toss guy. I'm not a big tee guy. Like for slappers, I think the tee, because contact point matters so much, like to train, you got to implement the tee side of it. I mean, that's just my opinion. Especially when you're teaching newer slappers and they don't know how their body's supposed to be at contact. So you got to kind of artificially create that spot. But I'm a big ball in flight because when you start and how well and how intentional you are about getting your swing off, that's why leveraging and all that other stuff is such a, we haven't even talked about the plan and approach side. Because I've got a real important question to ask Bobby when we get to that point. But back to your question, Tony, on that, I think it all comes down to intent. You just see kids really intentional when it's on a tee and they're trying to max out, and it changes once that ball gets in flight. That's the equalizer.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what, it's funny you say that, Tony, because that's one of the first conversations we had with our players was you have to understand your intensity, right? And if you don't understand your intensity, and if you're trying to, and even if it's vice versa, right? If you're going real soft off the tee and you try to turn it on come game time or come, ball in flight,
Right.
well, that's not good either, right? How do you create consistent intensity throughout your workout? And so to answer your question, I do think they change it, and I wish they didn't. And to Scott's point, I don't really use a ton of tee either unless it's for mechanical things. Like if we're trying to really work on something mechanical, we'll pull the tee out because it's just a consistent, spot for them to really
Sure.
work on what they're trying to work on. But
As a college coach, what's, for, again, coaches that might be listening, what is that number that catches your eye for, let's say, a 16 and under player, older, that as far as exit velo, that says, okay, this kid can got a little behind it?
Well, I would say, what kind of player are they, first of all?
Okay.
Right.
So corner, let's go with a corner player, stronger
Yeah,
hitter,
so
power based.
if so, a power hitter type athlete, if they can start getting 70 plus, that's when I'm going, holy cow.
Right.
Like
And that's kind of my point is now you've got a kid like chasing that number, right? So it's funny if you, it's like a hit tracks or something. They're up there. It's like a video game. They're trying to increase their numbers. And if you watch the kids on their own when they're not being told how to swing and what they do to start generating power, which is really not maybe the best game approach as far as timing and sequencing, like Scott says, but what they start to do to just generate to get that number up, and all of a sudden they're doing things they don't even know they're doing them, right?
Yeah.
And that effort to change that number off the tee, because man, I tell you, our kids love competing on that. They love just to try to beat their PR, whatever. They can get their numbers up, 70 plus, whatever. But then, again, it tends to change a little bit more once you're timing that arm. And to Scott's point, it's a little different when the ball's in flight.
So I always say data tells a story, right? So there's a story behind that swing, that 70-mile-an-hour swing. There was a story behind it. Was it that they were putting max effort and changing mechanical things? Or was it, hey, that's a easy 70-mile-an-hour shot that I kept, good mechanics, had good timing. Like every swing has a story, right? And every data point has a story. And I think the biggest message is, exit speed matters, but how you create the exit speed probably matters even more.
Right.
Because if you don't have a great foundation of mechanical things, then you're probably not going to have a lot of success. But more than anything, there's so many other buckets that also go into hitting. Like you could have a great swing, but never play in the SEC, right?
Yeah.
You could have,
sure.
Your swing could look just like Albert Pujols. That's probably my favorite swing, right? Your swing could look just like Albert Pujols, and you could bat, whatever, for April, like I did at one point in my life. But like it doesn't matter, right? Like if you can't make contact on time, doesn't matter.
Right.
So
Do you think, Bobby, how big a help was coaching travel ball to you in going from coaching travel ball into college? Do you think it helped you at all? And if so, what do you think you took from that?
two things. One, I got to have a real grasp of what's happening within the travel ball community and what is some of the premier teams teaching their athletes, right? And so I got to really kind of see like, okay, hey, when I'm coaching in this setting now, I know that we may be missing some of these things, but I know they're getting trained up on these things, right? And so that was one of the most beneficial things. I'm like, man, from a strategic standpoint, when I look at a player now, it's okay. Hey, I know they're working on this, but we may need to work on this. right? For certain programs, because I've gotten to know Tony, I've gotten to know Scott, I've gotten to know Mike Stith, Marty Tite, all those, right? I've gotten to know what certain coaches are teaching within their programs because I was there on the field. I'm going, okay, yeah, man, they can run first and third. Okay, yeah, they are clearly running a plan. Oh yeah, they know how to do this or this or this, right? And then the other thing is the in-game strategy piece. Um, because we didn't have the bells and whistles, right? Being able to coach on the fly and your coach's intuition is just so high, and making in-game adjustments and picking like pitches and that, like all that stuff. If you're good at those things in travel ball as a coach, you're going to exploit a lot of people. Like I can't tell you how many times I had someone's change up, and it's like this poor kid. I felt bad half the time. I go to the coach after and go, hey, she did this because I just felt awful. If it's not something that we're going to play ever again, it's like, hey, I just need to tell this kid that, she's got a great changeup. You just give it away immediately.
Good for you, young man. I'm proud of you.
But
Scott's like, don't do that.
He waited till he won the national championship, and then he told him.
That's right.
Okay, there you go.
No,
what are they just talking about? Randy Johnson tipping his slider. These guys weren't telling him when they were playing, right? When he showed his pinky or whatever. So you tell him later on and go, hey, by the way, I had your changeup.
Right.
Well, and it's interesting because I've wondered about that, and I've talked to a handful of coaches that have coached with us, and Tony, I'm sure you same way, coached with us and then transition to the next level, and what they took from coaching, in travel ball, what that looked like, and the in-game adjustments, the plan and approach side of it, because that's all you got. We don't have a scouting report like they have in college. So the plan and approach, and it's ever evolving. And so I'm curious what you felt like, what was beneficial to you.
Our approach changes on field to field, umpire to umpire, park to park. You walk up and you have something to deal with that we don't know. And I feel like, especially now, the way the business aspect of college ball is with the transfer portal, is that you're more prepared for something like that because, see, in travel ball, there's no 4 years. There's no when a kid has an idea that she can either level up or she's not happy or whatever, she moves. So that anticipation skill as an experienced travel ball player is like you're not surprised by it because you kind of understand the food chain. The ones that don't understand it get angry with it, and then they someone stole their players and stuff like that. But no, everyone's making decisions. So college has really become a lot more like travel ball in the sense that there's no guarantees that your best player is going to stay, even if you're ranked number 3, because there's 2 spots ahead of them, and then. And it works the other way, right? You pick up these kids out of high school, maybe it didn't work out, but they have an opportunity to go to a different place. Now you get a mid-major kid that hit 21 home runs, and now she has an opportunity. So that abrupt change was really, though, something that we're used to every year, that the best mentality is to anticipate that change and be prepared for it. So, I would imagine quite a few coaches are getting a little more used to the process now, but that was quite a change for college ball.
Yeah, I mean, huge change, and just having to re-recruit your players over and over. I mean, y'all deal with it every fall, summer, and winter. You're having to re-recruit your players onto your program to keep them.
Now you can keep an eye on who's putting up numbers at mid-major, smaller schools. I mean, you've got a whole other, which even that process in recruiting is a lot shorter than the travel ball process of recruiting, correct?
100%. 100%. Those windows are very, very small.
So there's a challenge for us, right? Now we know that, okay, are they all just going to high school players? It's like, look, no, we've got to reload next year. And there's a kid come out of so-and-so university that we've got to pick that up. So we just don't have that need for let's just say the convenience or the opportunity to get an already experienced, weight-lifted, right, strong, mature 20-year-old, right? And so that becomes now a good challenge for us as well to make sure we're providing that value, right? Not just getting kids to school, but you got to have value, right? And again, that's one thing I'm really proud of, Scott, man. I mean, what you guys have done to go to the top of the food chain, and we were talking about offensive styles earlier. And just these 3, because there's tons of great programs, tons of great coaches out there and stuff. But when you get to watch, Tyson coach third and the way they swing the bat, then you watch Stith, the way he coaches third, and you watch the way they swing the bat, and then Scott coached third and the way they swing the bat, right? That's really a great thing to kind of watch because they're all different in how they do things, as you said, but yet each is just so efficient in its own way, right? And so for me, that's an exciting part of the competition, part of what we do as well.
Absolutely.
Well, and it goes back to what I was saying. It's the recipe, right? Like what you're putting in that recipe, you've taken from other people along the way. Like I can't tell you how many times I learned how often and how to set up running the fake bunt double steal from Tony Rico, because I got tired of him running that shit against me, and it was cool when I finally executed it against him, and he looked at me and kind of smiled, from that standpoint. But those are all pieces of the.
I'm glad you remember.
Yes, you remember that. You remember that. You remember that. And now I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, but so listen, 1 minute on that one, right? So Scott and I played each other a few times, and I guess I didn't wait till after nationals because it was during Triple
Yes.
Crown nationals, and I kind of did what you did, Bob. I kind of pulled him over to the table and said, "Hey, man, here's kind of what I've been doing, and honestly, I don't get a thrill out of continuing to do it to you. So here it is, and keep your eye open for it." And it took a little while for the opportunity, but then we kind of changed coaching roles, and I was no longer at third base, and we had the great Rob Weil coach at third, and we faced Scott a couple years later in Colorado, and that's a lot of times initially that's where we've kind of initiated our competitive stuff, and so here we are. I think you guys were down. They've got runners at first and second. No. We're up, and our runners are on second base, and Rob's going to fake bunt steal. Like he just does that all the time, right? And I'm like, okay, usually Scott wasn't ready for this. And Scott was ready for it, and threw us out at third base, right? So now Rob Wild's like, what the fuck? Like, how did this team even know? Like, what, And so I'm over there looking, and I'm you're in the middle of two places because you're competitive, but I'm actually happy for my boy out there, right? So they win the game. I think you knock us into the losers bracket, and then we go through the line, and Scott kind of looks at me afterwards like, "Are you mad, bro?" Or so I go, "Come on, man. How am I not going to give you a hug? Like you finally figured that shit out, and you beat us like that. That's." In the end, that's kind of what I'm going for is that, look, here's just the level up of the game and stuff. And, poor Rob, he didn't know what the hell, he didn't know what happened before.
He's not
He
even figuring out why Tony and I are dapping it up and we're talking about play.
Yeah,
but those are moments, man. And they're part of the ingredients. And that's the part that, I just wish more coaches would appreciate what that process is like. And that's what Bobby. He's like, he's about the same age as Gunner. He's about the same age as my son. But Bobby and I sit around and drink green Modelo's and talk softball a bunch. And so I'm proud of what he's accomplishing. And I know he's taken things that he learned here. And hell, Bobby came to us knowing a lot of shit. But I think he left knowing some more. And I think that's a byproduct of having gotten to coach against Marty Tyson and those guys and having gotten to being around certain coaches and in those environments. So I knew when Bobby made that move back into college, I knew he was going to be successful. Yeah, because I think you almost needed to do that, right? I think you needed to come into travel ball and kind of experience that whole and network and create those relationships that's going to pay dividends on the recruiting piece and all that stuff, and them get to know you. And I just knew it was going to be a success. I just knew it.
Hey, let me ask you this: if you were to recommend a book, a video, something to watch for a coach out there that wants
he
to
can't
learn,
read, right? He doesn't read books.
Right?
Don't.
Say
video.
A cartoon.
Say a YouTube short or something like that.
Wow, well, he's smarter than he looks then because he's been talking up a pretty good game here, Scott. So, but what would you guys pass on to another coach out there that, again, they're into learning. There's a lot of stuff out there, right? Even if it's like an Instagram site or a social media site, someone that's putting up reels, that's always good. And just, man, that's my go-to to kind of hear what this person's saying. Anything stand out?
There's a few, to be honest. Like there's, Bobby Tewksbury is really good. He's one of my good buddies. I think he does a great job. There's Out Front Hitting is another great page that they have some really good stuff.
Bleak.
108 with Bleak. Like those guys are my buddies too. But I was going to bring up, there's a documentary out right now with, oh my gosh.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you,
blanking on the
Tony? I told you.
Oh my
Hey,
gosh.
show
What's
his
his
swing
name?
and we'll guess who it was. If it was a hitter.
Well, I'll bring it up in a minute, but
Ken
anyways,
Griffey.
it has to do with plan and approach, right? Um, and so I wanted to make this point because I know Scott runs plans. Tony, I know you run plans, but too many times within what we do, right? We get athletes where they've never ran a plan, right? And so, and I don't know if it's because I feel like I know their coaches or some of them, and I feel like I'm like, man, they talk about running plans, and so I don't know if the accountability isn't there of, hey, you said you were going to hunt middle in, and you swung at a outside pitch, right? Or I don't know if they're maybe not being talked through it, or maybe there's not enough film. I feel like one thing travel ball can do better is we could have more film sessions. Like even myself, when I was in travel ball, I felt like there wasn't enough film sessions,
Game and practice?
game and practice both. Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so many learning moments, even from things that are good or things that were shortfalls. But I do think that the plan and approach piece could be better and taught better at the younger levels, because when they get here, and part of it, to be fair to the athlete, if they're facing 60 miles an hour, that may not be very fast for them, and so they may not. They just see ball, hit ball, right? Because it has maybe broken spin and it's 60 miles an hour, and so it's not tripping them up, right? But when they start facing the Scott Smiths and the Tony Ricos and those people later throughout Alliance or whatever tournament they're playing in, like the spin gets better and the velocity gets better, and so you can't beat an All-American pitcher trying to cover all 17 inches of the plate. Like it's not going to happen.
Hey, the old
So
days, you could win your first three, and all of a sudden, your fourth game, it's a completely different ball game, completely different flight, spin, rate, everything. And it's like,
everything,
hey,
man, and so I don't have a great site for that or anything like that, but
right.
I would just
That's your
say
advice, though. Your
that's
biggest
my
piece of
advice,
advice
man.
to coaches.
If you do find something, let me know, because you know I think that stuff's so valuable. Oh, I know. Sorry, I know.
Oh, he got it. He's got it. All right. He's still young enough. His memory came back. Excellent.
Greg Maddox and Barry Bonds.
Oh, yeah. Breaking those at-bats, the same at-bats of coming
Yes,
inside. And
that
yeah,
stuff's gold. I showed that to our team.
Yeah.
And our team was like, whoa. And I'm like, those guys were in different cities and
Yeah.
states talking about their at bat,
Yeah.
saying, man, I knew he was going to speed me up here. And he goes, I was trying to speed him up there.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, that's
they're,
I know
they're
what you're
talking
saying. That's a
through
great
it
one.
at such a high level. Like
Yeah.
it's a game of chess. And right now, if you're not running plans, you're playing checkers.
You know what's crazy,
Yeah.
Bobby,
Like
is
that's
and
a
you
real
know
thing.
how hard we push that plan and approach, right? Like that's it's not a catchphrase. And I know it's not necessarily for the firecrackers and other people, but it's specifically speaking for us, it is a 1000% big deal. And I can't tell you how hard it is. And one of the big things that I keep butting my head up against is they don't understand the definition of a plan and approach. All right. They're hearing me say it, but they don't know how to take that into a strategic step-by-step approach. Oh, okay. We're hunting middle in. Yeah, that means don't stand on the plate, idiot. Back up off the plate because we're hunting middle in, right? And create some space for your back to work, right? Those two go hand in hand with one another, all right? I got to tell you that part too, right? Like those are I did tell you that part 100 freaking times, right? And you're still not rationalizing.
Well, but actually, you do.
Yeah.
You do need to say that because, again, so I would imagine as we pitch this episode and what it's really about, there's a lot of coaches that are hungry for this stuff, right? And so if you were to simply, differentiate the difference between a plan and approach, what would you tell any coach listening, Scott?
Well, I think trying to get the feedback from the players that they truly understand what you're saying for them to do, right? Like that. A good example, I'll just use that. If we're hunting middle in, then you do understand, yes, nod at me and tell me you do, that when we say we're hunting middle in, you immediately know I have to have space to operate there. So don't crowd the plate. Right. Or if we're creating a new middle of the plate because we are taking away the inner half, that you do realize that the new middle of the plate is the black on the other side. Like that, those two go hand in hand with one another.
That's a great
Like
point.
those are things, and I always have to remind myself I'm dealing with 15 and 16 and 17-year-old kids who may have never done that, right? And Bobby, well, I was fortunate when Bobby was with the Bombers, he was coaching 14-year-olds. So imagine how hard we all know. Imagine for the coach out there coaching a 14-year-old kid, trying to teach him that.
But you can, because the wording of the plan and approach, that's not rocket science. So I think what it is, and then, Bob, you said like there's no video out there for that. I think the video is like psychology of when you get triggered, and now you're not talking about the plan as a coach. You start giving mechanical, because the instant frustration that kicks in when a kid, in the words, does something wrong, right? When they do something wrong, and you do something wrong 3 times in a row, most men get triggered, and then their dialogue is not about your plan and approach. Their dialogue becomes frustration, a reaction to what the kid's doing. So now they all nod their head that in concept they understand plan and approach, but the actual application of it, very, very few teams, very few coaches actually execute it afterwards, to where you use the term debriefing afterwards. Okay, so I mentioned that a couple episodes. Talk about what you swung at, and not so much how you swung the bat all the time. These kids down here, 99% of their information from the people that you're usually around is about how they swung the bat, right? So correct or incorrect, they miss that true major league ingredient of what sustains it for a major league hitters. And that goes back to even that video that you're talking about, watching and listening to people that compete at that level. What is their competitive mindset? It's really, what do I think he's going to do to me, and what do I think I'm going to try to do to him, and then see who guesses right or wrong, right?
And it's funny because, like, what's an easier thing to fix, right? Like, if I'm constantly under a ball, is it me swinging differently, like putting my hands higher and swinging differently than the thousands of reps that I've taken already, or just aiming above a ball, or right, like making a mindset shift, versus a mechanical shift. And I think that's the part that so many coaches kind of miss out on. And I'm fortunate enough that we have two offensive hitting coaches, right? And one's on the bases, and I'm in the hole with the hitters. And so I get to talk about those things with the hitters and help them and guide them through that process. And so I can help them understand, hey, in this count, right? Like, you're going to be hunting middle away until you get to 2-0, right? Or, hey, you're going to, like, because now it's a higher level. Like, when I was coaching 14s, it was like, hey, you're sitting all middle away, or hey, you're sitting all, like, that was kind of the plan, because it was they were so young, right?
And a lot higher mistake rate from the pitchers.
Yep. And now we have, hot counts, or, we're talking about being flatter, or we're talking about, trying to lift the ball because it has true downspin. Like, those are the conversations that we're kind of having a little bit more now. But I mean, yesterday, one of our best hitters, she was constantly under, and I said, hey, I want you to miss this ball. I want you to swing above and completely miss it. What happens? Line drive.
Yeah.
And it's like, and she's go, man, I was thinking like 2.5 balls above that.
You don't realize that I'm crying on the inside, because for the 30 plus years I've been coaching, I felt like I'm the only guy that does that. You can go back to some of my earliest kids, and I say I'm crazy, Coach Tony, because I'm going to tell you to miss the ball to hit it, and so I want it to sound crazy, right? Yeah. So isn't it cool when the kid hits the ball, and then you ask her, so what did you do? And she says, I swung higher. Now there's data, there's everything else in there, right? But her calculate, she's able to accomplish. And here's the thing about the plan and approach, that is executable almost 100% of the time. So you can't, a lot of these other things you can't sustain 100% of the time, but your plan, approach, behavior, mindset, those are constants that keep you consistent. And when you get away from those things, now your inconsistency rate is so high, right? So I feel like there's a bridge for so many people, especially at our level down here, that they're not that far away, Scott, right? If they just build this bridge from where they are right now and how they talk about hitting, how they look at hitting as hitters, because you think about it, it's not like we're getting hitters that don't know how to swing the bat at all, even if they have had a lot of things put in their mind. They have a general, these kids have been playing the game even by 14, they've been playing 6 years. right? 10 years is mastery. So you figure 17. So, when we can kind of finish and then prepare them for what happens at your level, Bobby, that's kind of the ideal progression is, certain ages you learn this. With us, now we're integrating maybe more mental things and behavioral type things that are important to playing on the big stage. I mean, you can't go into Tuscaloosa, Gainesville, anywhere and not feel the energy from the crowd. That's why Scott likes to put his kids up against Marty Tyson, right? You can't replicate that feeling until you're there in that battle, and that's irreplaceable, and that's valuable experience, right? Being able to calm down in those moments.
Well, and it goes back to what I was saying. I don't know which podcast it was, Tony. We were talking about building armor. Is building armor comes from the battles. That comes from being in those environments and understanding what you're doing and the why. Why are we having to execute a plan and approach? Like Bobby said, you facing 60 with no upspin, you probably go in there and just see ball, hit ball. You facing 68 with real upspin and a nasty off speed, and she can dump it away on the other side of the plate with a drop away to you. Have fun with that with no plan. Like, just go up there and get at it. That'll be a fun day for you. But nothing. What's interesting to me is really nothing, because they all have hitting coaches, right? They all go take lessons. They all do all that stuff. But inevitably, every case, they're working on mechanics. And we haven't talked to Bobby about a single mechanic for the most part. We've talked about a mental adjustment. He just talked about it. Swing a ball above, right? That's mentally having intent to try to miss above the ball. And what you talked about, T. Okay. But to me, the plan and approach part at the travel ball level is the most underdeveloped tool that most coaches don't spend enough energy and effort, because they get fixated, which I get. They get fixated on just trying to win the game. And I just got to score one more run than you. All right, well, that's a real simple way to do it. Right. Or I can come up with a really solid approach to ensure I must score more than one run than you. But that's why I go back to chase rate. And that's why when I was king for the day, it was eliminate the fact that there's a river in softball, because that pushes guesswork into it. Guess I should swing at that. MLB guys don't guess about swinging at nothing. Is it on the white? Do I think it's on the white? I'm hitting it. I'm going to try to swing at it. If it's off the white, I'm going to try to spit on it. And it makes for a simple, it's not like I'm saying hitting in the major leagues is simple, but I'm saying imagine if they had to chase the river on both sides of the plate, and there was such thing in baseball as a river. Like, batting averages would be 120. Like, that's just what they'd look like.
Well, I think it gets as simple as that, right? A box with, what did you swing at, right? Mm-hmm. So this could be 3 good pitches you swung at, and this could be 0 for 3. But say, look, man, that selection right there. So you hit an atom ball, line drive at shortstop, a deep fly ball to center, right? And it just missed pop up, right? So there's nothing to show. Okay, you're 3 for 3, but you got a tweener ground ball, a bleeder over the shortstop's head, right? A swing and bunt, right? So on one end, we get the emotional register of like numbers and how they feel, but who goes back and actually talks about that? Because that is the key. And that's to your point, Scott, is being efficient at what you're swinging at, not expanding. And the thing down here is they don't get enough dialogue, right? I really encourage coaches to have dialogue about those decisions, or what was in your mind after that one pitch, what went through your mind, right? And if it's about your shoulder, you're making that average pitch caller on the other side of the field over there that really doesn't understand the level. You're making him look like a genius because he's just calling the obvious, right? You pull a ball foul, and now he throws you the changeup, man. You double now to right field on that changeup. Now the next time he looks at you in travel ball, he's got a problem. Bobby, you guys get scouting reports. The only one that gets scouting reports in travel ball is Scotty when he brings us into his exposure thing and he gets all that data on our teams. But no one else. No one else gets information in travel ball like Scott does, because we're for the most of us, we're learning on the fly. We see upspin or downspin when we walk to the field and the kid's warming up in front of the dugout. And then that's the first advantage or first opportunity we're going to see to how she's spinning the ball, right?
But Bobby didn't get the use of the yak or whatever it is people are using to grab data. That's got to be powerful for you from a swing decision analysis. Like, I'm sure you're telling me you didn't swing at the up pitch. I'm going to show you where it was on the. I can show you in real time. Put it on a damn video board in 3D and put it on.
Well, that's true
It's
too, though, because a lot of times kids think the ball's somewhere, and then you go back and go, no, that home run's a middle. You thought it was high, you thought
Yeah.
it was out. Go back and look at it, and look at the catcher's glove, right? The catcher's glove is going to show you right where that ball is headed, and they're going like, oh, I thought that was high. I go, I like the high ball. I go, okay, show me your video, and I'm like, look, that's not a high ball, you knucklehead. That's like the top third
man,
of the strike zone.
all this stuff is so intertwining because right there, right? Like I can show them and they go, man, that didn't feel that way. Well, that's the S2 cognition side, right? They have bad perception speed and bad trajectory estimation.
Oh,
It's not
damn,
their
see, that's big
fault,
right there. Shit.
right? It's not their fault, but I still have to train them, right? And I can use the data and go, hey, she threw that pitch up in the zone, and this exact example happened the other day. And they go, man, that was a dirty rise ball, coach. Like you said she had downspin. I go back and look, 3 inches of down. It was just up in the zone. So
Yeah.
just because, and guess what? The angle of the release, yeah, it comes up, but then it has downspin, so it flattens out. So it's still gonna feel like up. So like as much as the shape of the pitch is still downspin, it's still up. So if it feels like up to you, you may still have to get above that ball, right?
Right.
It may not feel like up to me because my cognition may be different than yours, right? Just like you may be able to tell the outer half of the plate is a ball or a strike way better than I can. But you said something earlier too, Tony, that was so spot on. You said the word dialogue. It's not a monologue. So these coaches, when they're having these conversations, it can't be a one-way thing, right? It's a dialogue. It's getting feedback. It's having a conversation. It's asking questions,
Because when they
right?
get to you and they're well spoken and they can tell you about their plan and approach, right? Because the
Oh
one
my
thing that most
gosh.
kids master down here is the head nod. They get
Just to
validation
make you
from
be
their
quiet.
instructors,
Yeah.
right? Right. And
Just to make you
then
be quiet.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's the
just to be able to have
dialogue.
dialogue and have a voice and have ownership of what they're doing. You know, we have a big mirror on our wall. I said, before you step in the cage, go stand in front of the mirror, get to know your stance, get to know every part of like what you're doing, and look how it looks because you're getting all your validation from everyone else. You should know exactly, are your shoulders tight? Are they up? Are you bringing what does it look like as opposed to just auditory feedback all the time? It's very, very powerful. Get used to
It,
this, by the way. I think it still runs, and then I think he goes to the bathroom and then he comes back.
Well, and the other thing too is like, how do you guide the athlete? How do you guide the athlete to kind of do what you want, right? Because the more you make it their idea, the more they're gonna have ownership of it, and the less of an excuse it is, right? So, well, yes, I agree as well. It gave me a
Yeah,
thumbs
I
up
think
from Tony.
that's a great point, and that's again to tie in the all the different collective information that they get from their instructors, whatever it is. But we have a chance to put that recipe together, Scott, that you talk about. In the end, what I enjoy doing is taking the ingredients because we're all a collection of everyone we've ever played for, some more influential than others. But now we get to put it all together because Bobby, your level's the stage. You know, your level is I think there's an entertainment aspect. You know, the entertainment aspect of watching the Bombers play, right? There's a high entertainment aspect where you buy a ticket to watch this machine play, and I think that that's something that when we prepare our kids more for expression, right, that confidence, because you do see a lot of it at the high D1 level. It is a beautiful game to watch, man. I mean, the composure with the coaches overall on television, the overall flow of the game. I mean, guys, that's the one thing that I am most proud of with all the years that we've been doing this is the way the game is being played, what you guys are doing. Man, it is. I'm really proud to be part of it, and I'm really hoping that people can listen to this dialogue. And at the end, I've had sessions like this. You say to the kid afterwards, "So what did I tell you did wrong today?" And she goes, "Nothing." I said, "Look at all the changes and look at all the things, but what you had now is you have a freedom to explore because you realize you're not on a tightrope." Right. And these people around you that love you or well intended that get freaked out and frustrated every time, you just can't put yourself in their hands for your confidence. They're just the people that have expectations. They're trying to help you, but you can't let them dictate your value. Like because you guys have been playing this game a long time. So
you
great
know,
conversation, guys. Love it.
hey, we absolutely. And Bobby's going to continue to set the bar high. That's what I know about him. He's going to continue to push the envelope, the use of data, the use of alternative tools to help players be better. That's what I love about what he's doing over there. All right, we're going to get into a little lighter subject, all right? I don't even know if Bobby can weigh in on this subject, but he's going to have to either, if he can jump in the middle of it and give us his take. I don't know why he couldn't. But we're not going to not have this this podcast and not talk about what the hell happened to Tim Walton in that game against Arkansas. What the hell was that? Like,
That was
I'd have got thrown out 3 times in that game. They'd have thrown me out 3 times, right?
Tim's actually here. We play him this weekend. And that's the first question I'm going to ask him.
What was the hell was the explanation of that? Like, seriously, what could that have been?
I think
how do you put the runner at first base?
I would say, I guess, because they nailed the play too soon, or I still don't understand. I can't fathom.
The defense went ahead and finished the play and threw her out by 4 steps.
No. I'm like,
hey, you know how you read a newspaper and someone says reliable sources say? So I've got a somewhat reliable source that said, so could be wrong, that there was an actual NCAA ruling ahead of time before all this, that if an umpire, now this is I'm going to screw this up my words, but in this case, umpire calls the ball dead, and they review it, and the call gets reversed. The call wasn't true, so in this case, the ball didn't hit her, that the batter gets awarded first base. Like, that was a pre-existing type ruling, right? Now, again, we go into this conversation of, all right, did anyone say sounds like a good idea, not a good idea? Because then the problem with this particular play was she was out. Like, she was out by 5 steps. And so if I don't know what that ruling was, if I'm coaching and I don't know, they didn't send it out, that they're going to be, that just looks off to me, because it's like, you remember I got this video sent to me when there was a pop-up. It was a major league game, and there's a pop-up to the shortstop, and he just barely had to go around the runner at second, but they called interference. So they ended up giving a double play to end the game. And there was really no interference. It was by the rule, but you should have just let the play happen. So that's what I got, is that there was a ruling. And then I feel like the guy behind the plate was kind of fucked, because like, man, I gotta stick to what we were told now. And then Tim did his thing.
I don't even know how. Like, the coolest part about the whole thing was the guy told him what was going to happen, and Tim like soaked it in. Like, he just walked over to the dugout, and then there was a moment. There was a moment where he went, "No, fuck that. I'm not. This ain't going down like this. I'm not having it." So Bobby, we've got Bobby only for a short amount of time. He's got about 5 more minutes with us, and so we're gonna do. We may not get to. And Bobby can't even probably pick games with us, so he's not gonna be able to pick games with us. But Bobby, what we do is we have a one big thing. That's how we kind of finish our thing. And one big thing, if you were going to share with the softball, with our 5 listeners that we have that listen to the Two in the Mud podcast, what's your one big thing you'd like to talk about? Putting you on the spot.
That kind of wraps up all this,
well,
or just in
general, like something you think is important to you in the sport, something.
What's big to you?
What's big to you right now?
Pass on to people that's big to you.
Yeah.
I'm still the plan and approach stuff, man. The biggest thing that I would say that would wrap up all of this, and just in general, what I want to say because once again, I just think it's so misused, and not talked about enough. The simplest way I can say it is, if you ask one of your players, hey, that outside, like comparing it to an outside pitch, if you're going to go shopping for, high heels, are you going to go to Dick's Sporting Good? No, you wouldn't, because you wouldn't find any high heels there, right? And it's the same thing in a game, right? Like if you're going to get pitched all outside, why would you look inside, right?
Yep.
And so, in its simplest form, that's what it is, right? You're making an educated guess, a hypothesis, whatever terminology
Bobby,
you want to use.
we don't use big words here, dude. Just stick with educated guess.
I thought you said hippopotamus.
Yeah, I thought you said hippopotamuses too. You're from Lytle, Texas, dude. Don't be using shit like that.
One of my buddies, Jason Jennings, he told me, played in the big leagues, played at Baylor. I asked him, what made you the best hitter that you were? Like, what was it? He goes, man, I swung hard and I guessed off and right. And that tells you right there, even at the highest level, they're looking or anticipating or guessing for what they're going to get, right? And so I would just encourage everyone to do that, and then not be so hard on themselves. Like, you're playing a hard game. I would just say, coaches, don't be hard on your players. Like, be hard on them in the sense of have a standard. The standard's a standard. But understand, right? Be understanding and have the dialogue so that you can help them get better. Because you should be pushing your players and you should hold them to a standard. But
Awesome.
that being said, there's a big but there. How you do it matters.
Right.
It's good stuff.
Good stuff. Hey, Bobby, do me a favor. Say hi to Aaron. Say hi. I'm really happy that our girl Ange De Leon gets to get your guys' coaching. You know,
That's my
Ange
girl.
caught my eye a long time ago when she was in 8th grade. Kid had some style and flair, and I'm really happy that she got this high level IQ stuff. And she's a great kid. And so, best of luck this weekend. You're playing my boy Tim, and you know
Right.
that's always going to be great. It's going to be fun to watch, man. So go do your thing.
Appreciate
Proud
you
of
guys.
Bobby.
Thanks for having me on.
Bobby, thanks for joining us, bro. I'll holler at you, man. Good luck this weekend, dude.
We'll get you back on
Appreciate y'all. Bye.
later, bro.
T, good guest right there for the first one for Two in the Mud podcast.
Let's. I would imagine again, and you might have to say, "Hey, warning, this is hitting only." I got a couple. I might have told you, or maybe I didn't. A couple nice suggestions to cut down the bullshit of my childhood and get into some meat and potatoes of softball. So we definitely did that this time once we got everything on. But that was really well run, and I think that if we could pull them on. Maybe pull up some charts or do something, show people maybe a schematic or a visual, this conversation is great, but I think, visual learning is so important, but he's in the middle of two places. He appreciates and respects the older experience, but he's on the cutting edge of everything that you guys have been doing and what's happening right now in the game today.
Yeah, he played a big role for us, and he was I thought the timing for him coming to our program was good for us. That was a real good timing on our part. We benefited big time by having Bobby here. And I think, like I said, I thought him coming here to us benefited him because I really think he gathered some things that he was able to carry with. So, all right. So we'll wrap up. What's your one big thing this week, T?
Well, I'll tie it into kind of what we've been talking about, and that is take a look at your perspective. Right? Perspective is something that can change. And the power in perspective is immense to our conversation today, right? With all the data and the mechanical knowledge, especially that you have, and we can go down that road sometime to kind of dive into what's happening with the body. But perspective changes for a couple of reasons, either through fear, like when your doctor says, man, if you keep eating the way you're eating, you're probably not going to be around much longer. Or perspective can change from being inspired. Right. And I think the good part about this dialogue between coaches and coaches that compete against each other, but have a mutual respect for each other, is that I get inspired to change my perspective when I hear people that have a little different twist on things. Today it was kind of refreshing to hear someone else say, miss the ball on purpose.
Yeah.
Right. But I would just encourage people to take a look at a higher altitude perspective. We talked about that in the Alliance before, something we still need to talk about in the future. But that's it. Take a look at your viewpoint, because when you're ground level, you're in the red zone a lot. You don't realize that your perspective is very short-tempered, very short. You're not patient, and it's not empowering. Step back a little bit, let your kids learn, and you're going to see it pays off in the long run.
I like it.
What about you?
I like it. Mine's going to be a little more simple than that shit, because you always bring the whole in, like you got to think. And I love that, because our one big thing is always a lot on opposite ends of the spectrum. Can we bring back common sense to the game at times? Like that shit with Florida, like it made me turn the freaking TV off. I didn't even get to watch him hit the grand slam. The ending of the story ended up being good. No, I didn't care who win, right? But man, can we bring common sense to our world, right? On no planet, at any level, should it have been that crew took 23 minutes to decide to put that runner in first base? Like, stop. Can we stop that? And if you're an umpire out there and you listen to this, in fact, I do know we have some umpires that listen to this, T, because I had a couple of them talk to me about it. Oh, bro, I heard you talking mess about. And I said, bro, I wasn't talking mess about. I said, some of y'all, there's some good ones out there. Now, I don't know if you're in. I told him, I said, I don't know if you're in that good ones group. Like, I don't know if you're in that group, but I did say there were some good ones. Most of them are really talented, especially the ones at that level. And the umpires on the field may not even have agreed with what they decided at Birmingham.
Sure.
We got to be honest about that.
Well, because if you see what happens in real time, again, maybe the same thing for umpires or batting coaches. Take a different perspective because their job is to what? Like interpret the rules, right? Like that is their job. Like, hey, you guys are talking to us about how the game should be, and we get that. But our job, from our assigners to everyone else, is we have to enforce the rules that are there.
Yeah.
And then just like hitting, for a lot of umpires, those rules are fascinating, man. They're really into them. Hey,
Yeah.
so hey, look at this. What's the call? And I get that part of it, right? And I told you I've got a little experience now, and I get that part of it. I think that mutually, with your common sense, is can we look at something and say, is this right to our eyes? We can tell when something's off, and it shouldn't be allowed, and maybe there needs to be a rule implemented. I don't know if you've seen this reel. I've seen a couple of reels of this Japanese men's fast pitch pitcher. I don't know if he's setting records or he's doing whatever. But bro, like I got to send you this. You watch what he is doing. And what I noticed was the sound, like once he leaps, right? Once he jumps off that rubber, his foot his back foot hits, then his front foot hits, and then his arm hits so it's like this, pa pa pa. And then the ball is coming out like, dude, he's probably throwing high 80s. I don't know what he's throwing. But you look at maximizing what the body can do to throw underhand.
Yeah.
It is amazing
Incredible.
to watch. Like it really, really is. But common sense, yeah, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. I think we all know a baseball player that hit bombs that maybe had one or two brain cells. Not a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it worked.
I just was shocked that people sat in a room for 23 minutes, came up with that decision. Like,
Well, but how long have we dealt with rules committees? Again, all respect, but and there's something every year, that's something we've seen a lot in the years that we've been coaching, right?
Yeah.
The lanes with the pitching, when Taryn Moat was getting a little out with her screwball and different things. Like we've seen a lot of things. So, all right, listen. Something happened this week. I'm gonna throw it to you that it's not well. It does affect me because it's our home team, but I really felt. Did you watch that Luka deal going back to Dallas?
Yeah.
Pregame?
Yeah.
Bro. What's your take on that? Because that I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like that.
I keep going back. There has to be so much behind the story that we don't know. There has to be.
He looked like a kid that had been sent away from his home. I know he'll make the most of it. And I don't know him, but we have one of our directors in Dallas area. I said, bro, I've watched that. I felt bad for you guys. Like I've never seen anything like that. And then he's got the quiver lip, bro. Like he's only 25. Like I know he's got the money and he's got all this. I get all that, but that moment. We've seen a lot of tributes, right? We've seen a lot of things, but that was like very real.
Bro,
man.
did you see the video that they caught? Like Luka hit a big shot, a big threat. What did he score in that game? 5 or something?
Well, he scored 31 in the first half and 45 for the game.
Yeah.
He was making a ridiculous shot.
But he turned. They captured him saying something to Jason Kidd, like you knew, like he was telling him you knew, like he was pointing at him as he was running back.
So I kind of wonder when they do that, because you can kind of. When you're lip reading, you can make it look like you're saying different things.
It looked like you knew.
That would be a weird time to. That would be a weird time to say that to him like that, because I remember Jason Kidd's face at the press conference when they traded him, and he was just sitting there. He's not gonna say anything inappropriate.
Did you see what Mark? Did you see Mark Cuban getting interviewed about it? Did you see Mark Cuban getting interviewed about it? Where he said
and he was pretty honest about. I wouldn't have done it. They asked him if he's talked to Nico, the GM, and he goes, yeah. And they go, how does it go? And he goes, it was cordial. He goes, we're getting there. Bro.
He asked him, he said, are you asking me if you should or did you do it? And he goes, oh, we did it. He goes, oh, okay.
Well, Jason Kidd said it's kind of like trading Babe Ruth from the Red Sox. And then I don't know when I heard a reporter go, bro, that was like known as the worst trade in the history of like pro sports. Yeah. Like everything that happened after
he was
that.
He was trying to like justify it. Like that it happens. Yeah, it's nuts.
Bro, my heart like goes out to all the Maverick fans, and man, I just that was something to watch that. So I was glad I was there. I watched it on replay. But
being a Spurs fan, I love that they're going to be set back about 5 years trying to figure it all out post Luka. That'll be the best part. They'll have to be set back on that.
Okay, I lost you for the last 5 seconds.
Am I here? Am I back?
Broadband.
I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me?
Now you're back.
Yeah,
You disappeared you disappeared
I don't
2 or 3
even know.
times on me and Bobby.
Yeah, I don't even know, man. I got the internet says it's full strength. I don't know if it's something with the computer, what it is, but
Hey, get Bo Vinton or get someone in there to check your shit.
I'm gonna hardwire.
Let's go.
I'm gonna hardwire the shit, and then it'll keep getting better. I promise you. Hey, are we gonna talk about the
Good
fact
call
that
on Bobby today, bro?
Yeah, no doubt. Are we gonna talk about the fact that Holly and Kat? Did you see them announce their podcast? Did you see that announcement they made?
I might have noticed a post or 5.
Yeah. They think they're going to compete with us. I think that's what I'm thinking. They think.
I would say Vegas odds makers would say there's a tinge of competitive stuff. Like maybe they're going to show the old guys or something. Like we're really out to like conquer the social media world. Holly's learned so much in that
We're just
time with the range.
Yeah.
I go, we're like playing that team in pool play. You're going to beat 13-1, so I'm not worried about that.
Yeah,
I'm actually excited to see. The things that I want to know about people, right, and what I already know about Holly, and what I believe she's going to get from Kat and the stories and the experiences. I'm actually really excited about that.
It's going to be
Holly
fun.
She has like a Canadian, she's Canadian, and some of the best comedians come out of Canada. So when she gets in her little pocket, she can get it going pretty good. So I'm hoping that kind of finds that niche, and they're going to kill it.
Yeah.
They know it.
Yeah. No, it's going to be fun. I'm excited for them, and that's why I wanted to bring it up so people knew that was coming, and they should.
We don't need to step up our game, Scott. We're good with our one post, and
man,
whatever.
We got it. Yeah, if I could ever.
It's more about who doesn't get to hear this than the people that are really watching.
Exactly.
Who missed it?
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everybody listening today. We know today was a little bit long. We had a cool guest in Bobby, and got to kick around some cool stuff on hitting, and we'll tend to do that a little bit more frequently, I believe. And we'd love to hear from you guys about what you would love. What kind of guests would you like for us to bring on here and talk to? T, I think you probably got some ideas.
There's a lot of things we can do, and again, and if not a whole lot comes back, there's always something we can serve people. So stay tuned, people. We've got a lot of good people that we're fortunate enough to know, and we'll pull them in, and sometimes we'll bullshit a little bit. We'll talk the game a little bit. We'll talk life. And
you know who I'm going to get on here?
In a bowl.
T, you know who I'm going to get to come on here and have a conversation about training and hitting and stuff? It's Bleeker. How cool would that be? That one would be silly.
I've noticed in his reels too that he's starting to say some of that good, crazy stuff.
Yeah, he's good.
About hitters trying to intentionally miss the ball to hit it. Like I've heard it more recently that I'm telling you, man, I go back to this little rinky-dink cage I had to tie up with shoelaces once the holes were busted all over. And I used to go, man, there's nobody else saying swing under and completely miss it. So here's the thing: it's at least if you do that, there's a couple things that work, but at least you're not making the same mistake 4 times in a row. So your dad's losing his shit over there in the chair.
Yeah, you're changing your approach. You're changing it.
How to control and manage your coaches and dads.
Bleak's all fired up about softball.
An occasional mom who played the games, they're the ones that can go aggro on their kids too. It's because they're seeing it through softball lens.
They can. Right? They can, for sure. All right, guys. We appreciate y'all listening to us. Appreciate you joining us, Two in the Mud podcast. We'd love for you to go subscribe on YouTube and all the other stuff. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that good stuff. So go follow us there so you get notified when the new episode comes out. But we're fired up to get a chance to talk with you every couple of weeks, and we appreciate you.
That's it. We appreciate you all.
T.
Have a great one, people.
Take care, bub. Appreciate you. You're listening to the Two in the Mud podcast with Tony Rico and Scott Smith.